Hello and welcome to the VineLife Podcast. I'm Tony Clark, your host, and today I have the honor of having John Elefante on the program. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him. He's got quite an extensive biography. So what I did is I bullet pointed some and highlighted some of his bio, because if I were to go through it, it would take me about 2 days. It's a pretty amazing body of work. So John Elefante is a multi-Grammy award-winning singer, songwriter, and producer. He's best known for his stint as the lead singer for the massively popular rock band Kansas in the early 80s. He also worked as a producer with many Christian artists such as Petra, Sweet Comfort Band, Guardian, and etc. He also formed the band Mastodon with his brother Dino in the late 80s through his own record label called Pachyderm. He also has a distinguished solo career over the years with various successful albums. John's also the creator and owner with his brother of successful recording studios and record labels. And this one got me here. By the year 2010, John had been involved in 100 or more major albums in one way or another as producer, writer, or performer. And most recently, John is set to release his latest solo album, The Amazing Grace, this month through Deco Entertainment in North America. And John, I just want to welcome you on the program and thank you for coming on today.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. John, if we could just jump right into the genesis, to the beginnings of what got you interested in music in the first place. What were some of your influences?
You know what? As cliche as it might sound, it's just always been in my blood. My parents weren't necessarily musical. They didn't really play an instrument, either one of them. But they used to play records around the house since I could remember, which is probably 3 or 4 years old, just nonstop 24/7. You remember the records used to drop down when the other one was finished, just constantly all day long. I just think it, and it was so, they listened to so many different styles. I mean, it just really got in my blood. And my brother and I were making fake instruments when we were only like 5 and 6 years old. I made a drum set. I'm originally a drummer. I made a drum set out of cardboard boxes, and he made a guitar with rubber bands with a piece of wood. And so that's how early it started. So yeah, it sounds like at an early age you got interested in music. So some of the influences in your life, listening music, what were some of the bands or performers that really got you into it? Gosh, I go all over the map, Tony. I think the first band I really got into when I was a young kid was the Jackson 5. Because, you know, I had a high tenor voice like that too before I knew, actually, when I found out I can sing. You know, then I got into just everything in between, you know, the Beatles, of course, Chicago. I started to get more into rock as I got a little older, especially prog rock bands like Kansas and Genesis and Gentle Giant and you name it. But I'm all over the map. I mean, I love Steely Dan. I love so many different styles of music. I mean, like I said, I'm all over the place musically.
So you mentioned Kansas there. Were you a fan? And just if listeners don't already know, you were the lead singer for Kansas for a number of years. But were you a fan of Kansas before you entered the group?
No, without a doubt. Yeah. I was a huge fan of Kansas. I mean, if you would ask me if there's any band in the world that you could be a part of, which, you know, what band would it be? And I said, without a doubt, Kansas. So tell us. Also, go ahead. I'm sorry. Happened, you know.
Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about the story of how you got hooked up with Kansas and one of the co-founders, Kerry Livgren? Can you tell me about that?
You know, it was really strange the way it went down. It was pretty cool. A friend of mine from a band called Idle Cure. Do you remember those guys?
I do.
He comes pulling up to, you know, we had a home studio in the back. My parents converted their garage into a little studio, a little 8-track studio for us. And, you know, I used to constantly go in there, and Dino and I, and just make demos of originals because we were really starting to write a lot of our own stuff. And this friend of mine comes running up the driveway. John, have you heard Steve Walsh quit Kansas and they're doing auditions? And I'm thinking, really? Okay. What's that have to do with me? like I'm going to get that gig, right? He said, no, you're perfect. Your voice is perfect, man. I'm telling you. And it took me about a week, but I started to think, what do I have to lose? And we were shopping a record deal at the time through a guy named Jay Cooper, an attorney. And Jay had a bunch of our demos. I think there were 4 songs on that demo. And I said, Jay, do you know anybody attached with the band Kansas? He said, well, as a matter of fact, my partner, Chuck Hurwitz, represents them. I said, really? He goes, why don't I just I'll give one of your cassettes, remember those? I'll give a cassette over to Chuck Hurwitz and see what happens. I didn't think anything about it. Okay, he's going to give a cassette along with 30,000 other ones to Chuck Hurwitz, and he's probably going to throw it in the trash. Well, lo and behold, about a week later, this was all going over around Christmas of 80 or 81, I don't remember. I get a call from the manager. The manager's Bud Carr. And he said, we heard your tape and we like it. I said, I thought it was my brother playing a trick on me.
Yeah.
He said, can you come up to Hollywood to my house and I'll have lunch brought in and I'd like to just sit down and talk to you for a while. So I went up there and I actually brought a friend with me because I was so nervous, maybe he can help calm my nerves up and back on the drive. So I met with him for over an hour and the meeting went really well. He goes, okay, well, let me send the tape on to the guys in the band and let's see what happens. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm still not believing that this could possibly happen. Until about a week after that, I get a call from Kerry Livgren. That's when I said, Dino, quit playing the joke on me. I know it's you.
Yeah.
He goes, no, this is Kerry. I'm thinking, Kerry, the Kerry? And it was Kerry. And then I got a call from, I think it was Phil Lehart, the drummer. And we really dig what you're doing, man. One thing to another, they said, can you come out to Atlanta and so we can meet you? But before that, I went into the studio. They wanted to audition me in the studio. So Bud Carr was in the studio. Yeah, I've left out this part. And I'm sorry it's so lengthy, but I don't know how to condense it really.
No, please go.
So I went into the studio and there is Bud Carr, the manager. The band wasn't there because it was over Christmas time. They were home for Christmas. It was Bud Carr and a producer named Ken Scott, who worked with the Beatles, David Bowie, Supertramp. This guy's legendary.
Wow.
And my knees are shaking like you wouldn't believe. Right?
Yeah.
And I'd already learned the song they wanted me to audition to. And I sang it. My voice was really quivery because I was literally shaking inside.
Yeah.
So, it was the basic thank you. We'll get back to you. I went in the studio and talked to Bud and Ken Scott for just a little bit. And it was, just pleasantries. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I screwed that one up bad. And I got in the car and my brother Dino looks over at me. He had to drive because I was too nervous. He said, you got the gig, man.
Oh, wow.
I said, you're nuts. What are you smoking?
Yeah.
He said, you got the gig. They knew you were nervous. Those guys aren't idiots. They knew you were going to be nervous, but your voice fit the music perfectly. I said, amazing. Really? Must have sounded a lot different in there than it did in my headphones. And after that, I flew down to Atlanta to meet with the band. And I think I was there about 3 or 4 days. And I thought, the first thing they were going to do is have me sing some of their stuff. But they didn't, that wasn't their concern. They wanted to do some of my material.
Wow.
So we started, the first day I was there, we started doing one of my songs called Face It. And it was unbelievable. They'd already learned it. I'm thinking, I'm in a dream right now. So this went on down in Atlanta for about 3 days. And I think I came to rehearsal on the 3rd or 4th day and they said, you got the gig, brother. I was blown away. It's like, I couldn't wait to call my family. And the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. So that must have blown your mind. How old were you at the time?
Gosh, I must have been 22 or 23-ish, somewhere around there.
Wow. Well, that's like that's an amazing story. And so you mentioned Kerry Livgren, and one of the co-founders of the band. Was Kerry Livgren, or has he been an influence on your life?
Big time. Kerry is probably the most talented person that I've ever gotten to know very well. He just oozes talent, man. The guy's, I mean, no short of a genius. I mean, listen to some of the music he's written.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got this ability to just, do one thing on his left hand and something completely different on his right hand. And I figured out that's what made Kansas' sound. Because I would sit there and Kerry would bring in a new song and he'd be, do 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 on his right hand, and his left hand don 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 don. So I'm thinking, there's that Kansas sound right there, and it's only Kerry playing by himself. I hear what the bass would be doing because of his left hand, and I hear what the band and the violin's going to be doing and the piano on his right hand, and they're all going to start learning their parts based on, what he's playing. And there's the sound of there it is. Yeah. Not to take anything away from Steve Walsh or some of the other guys in the band that write, but the stuff specifically that Kerry wrote, I really understood its origin.
Yeah, and I love to listen to a lot of progressive music, but some of the newer progressive music, you can really hear the influence of Kansas in many of these bands. So what a legacy that you guys had for future generations, specifically for, I guess the term is prog rock or progressive rock. But you guys really laid a foundation there to a lot of these bands.
For some reason, I don't know that I think of Kansas as a prog rock band, even though they probably are. But and not that prog rock isn't melodic, but Kansas also had a pop element to them that a lot of prog bands don't have. Yeah. I mean, Genesis started out as a prog band, and then they started moving more into the pop field, usually because they want to make money and get some hit singles, which, I mean, that's the business part of it. But Kansas covered a lot of different genres. I mean, listen to something like "Hold On" or "Dust in the Wind." Those are pop songs.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing work, nevertheless. So you mentioned Idle Cure a minute ago, and did also, I believe, Mark Ambrose. Now, you're coming to faith in Christ. Did this guy have something to do with that? You've got a story there, don't you?
Oh, without a doubt. I've known Mark since probably fourth grade. That's a lot of years back, my friend. Me and Mark have been good friends, and we're still good friends. Mark is the pastor of a church of, I want to say 3,000 congregation, about 3,000 in oh gosh, it's where my brother lives, San Clemente, California.
Okay.
And anyway, Mark, him and I, back in grade school and junior high, used to just screw around all the time, and we were clowns, both of us. And I had kind of lost touch with Mark for a little while, and he came back into my life, and he was really different. I'd say, "Hey, Mark, what's up, man? What's the matter with you?" I didn't know a lot about Christianity. I mean, I hardly knew anything about it. And Mark gave me a book by Josh McDowell called "Evidence Demands a Verdict," which just lit me up. But he started talking to me about Christ. If you died tomorrow, do you think you'd go to heaven? I couldn't answer that question. Well, what are you talking about? Nobody's ever asked me that question. Like I said, I didn't know a lot about Christianity, and he educated me in a hurry. He was taking me to Bible studies at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California. Mm-hmm. And we would go back in that studio I was talking about that we built at my parents' garage, and we would just talk, and he would pray for me, and after he gave me that book, I don't know how much time went by, but I said, "Come on over, Mark. I'm ready, buddy." I said, "It takes more faith. It takes more faith to not believe than to believe."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm ready to accept Christ," but I was scared. I was very scared. I was super glad I did. It was the best decision I've ever made in my life. But, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to change my music, my friends, how I dress, my language, my this, my that. It's like everything's going to go down the drain now because I'm this wimpy little Christian. That wasn't true. I became a better person, and my life started to progress faster. My music started to take off. All these good things happened. And I couldn't have been more wrong. And a lot of people, they think when you become a Christian, you're just going to become a wimp. Christ was meek, not weak. Meek means strength under control. That's the definition of Christ. And but it was scary at first because I didn't know what I didn't know what to I didn't know what to think. Like I said, what would have to change in my life? Would it take me out of music? Would it take me away from my friends? Would it separate me from my family? What would happen? But it turned out just fine.
Now, was this before you entered into Kansas, or was it during or after?
No, it was before.
Okay.
1980. Maybe
so I'm
early 90. It might have been late 79. I should know the exact date.
That's okay. So you and Kerry Livgren had that connection, right, of Christianity?
Yes, but I'll tell you a quick story. When they decided to hire me and make me the singer of the band, Kerry Livgren, Dave Hope, Philly Hart, the Christians in the band didn't know I was a believer.
Oh, wow.
And when I got home, because I also came home after I got the gig to get more clothes and kind of just collect my thoughts and do whatever, I talked to Kerry on the phone. I said, I'm a believer, Kerry. He said he went silent on the phone. He couldn't believe it. He said, that's what we prayed for, that God would bring us a believer, a Christian. I said, well, he did. Kerry and Dave were just blown away. They didn't know.
That's an amazing story. It's God's working behind the scenes to put you guys together, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, John, you've got a long history of interacting with celebrities, well-known, world-known musicians, and that don't all share your faith. And I'm just curious, when you bump elbows with folks like that, can you tell that there's something missing in their life if they don't have a relationship with God? And, because, just on the outside, I'm looking at, they've got fame, they've got fortune, they've got everything that you can imagine, that this world can give. But does that bring them happiness? Does that bring them joy if they don't have a relationship with the Lord?
Tony, I know a lot of people that meet that description. I don't browbeat anybody or, try to shake anybody down to accept Christ. I try to be an example in the way I act, the way that I act, in my integrity. And I think people automatically notice there's something a little different. But I'll tell you what I've noticed amongst I've met a lot of very, very famous people. And when they're impressed with your voice and what you can do as a songwriter and a singer, there's a certain amount of respect that's built immediately. And it's like the Christianity thing, whether they agree with it or not, kind of goes out the window a little bit if they respect you. I mean, that's just kind of the way the world is, Yeah. I'll accept you being a Christian if I can respect you, So if I would violate that respect with somebody or violate that, or be somebody that I'm not, I mean, they would see me as a hypocrite. Yeah. And that would be gone. But it's funny how that works. I've met a lot of people that you think would just be completely opposite, but I've made a lot of friends and not ashamed to admit it. I mean, and I pray for them and they know where I stand.
How would you advise a person who is maybe a musician, who is an artist, and they're in a position where they're able to use their God-given talents, but maybe they're afraid that what they're doing is compromising their faith, or they're in a workplace that's maybe asking them to do something that's going to compromise their values? Would you give them, what advice would you give them?
First of all, I have to say that's a rough position to be in. It really is. I mean, if you're in a workplace and you're being asked to do something that maybe, goes against the grain of who you are as a believer, I mean, that's a tough place to be. I would say first pray about it hard See what God does. If not, then you got a hard choice to make. Do you want to stay in that position? Do you want to try and maybe make it suitable for who you are? See if that works. I mean, I personally couldn't stay in a position where I had to compromise who I am to get a paycheck. And I'm sorry if that some people are bothered by that, but I mean, that's just the way I feel.
Yeah. That's pretty sound advice, though. I mean, it's I think the first element there should be prayer, right? And we should talk to our Heavenly Father what He would have us to do in that individual situation.
I agree.
So yeah, great advice. So John, you're involved with a charity called UNCAGED. Can you tell us what that's about?
We just did a show for UNCAGED 3 nights ago just outside of Jacksonville in Sea Island, Georgia. It's the second show I've done. It's headed up by a woman named Kim Westfall, who's a wonderful, wonderful lady who has a real heart for human trafficking. And the more I learn about human trafficking, the more disgusting I realize it is. Because a lot of people don't know that overseas in all these places where this human trafficking takes place, it's mostly done by the parents selling their children. When I found that out, and that's the truth, when I found that out, I almost had to throw up.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a parent selling their child, to traffickers. And it's a much bigger problem than people realize. It's huge. I mean, it's really huge. And I don't know if it's going to be eradicated overnight, but there's a lot of organizations out there that are sure trying to slow it way down, and they're having some success.
So the UNCAGED charity, if someone wants to investigate more about this charity, if they want to donate to the charity, how would you advise them?
Uncaged.com. They can always use funds, because I've seen up close and personal the work that they do, and it's real. I mean, Kim's all over the world all the time. Kim Westfall, working for UNCAGED and just doing things. And they build shelters for a lot of these women that have been, women and, small boys or whatever. They build shelters where they can go so they can, detox them from this horrible feat and place them back where they should be.
Well, it sounds like an amazing charity. And I just encourage anyone who's watching this, go ahead and check out what I'm going to do is I'm going to put links to that charity and all of your other stuff, John, at the bottom of this video. But go to this website, go to UNCAGED, check them out. And if you're led, please give generously to this organization. It's kind of along the same theme, John. In 2013, you had a solo album that's called On My Way to the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got you had a song on there called This Time.
Right.
Now there's a connection to the song This Time in your family. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, This Time was written about my daughter's birth mother that got pregnant at 13, early 13. She didn't tell her mom she was pregnant. She went to abort, who's now my daughter, and was all ready to do it, just like the video. And she got scared, not so much of having the abortion, but the medical part of it. She saw the equipment and all that. And because she told me this story at a Bob's Big Boy in Riverside, California. And she got scared of all the equipment and the that part of it. And she asked to use the phone. And she went out in the hallway and used the phone and called her mom and told her she was pregnant. Mom didn't know. And her mom said, you run outside right now and I'll come and pick you up. Don't go back in there. So the video is pretty true to form. I mean, some of the exact nuances, I don't know because I wasn't there. But the main meat of that video is a true story. Have you seen the video?
I have. It is a tear-jerking video, and my wife and I have been involved in the past with the Women's Shelter, which basically is a pro-life organization. So that really hits home, and it's a tear-jerking, heart-warming video about someone choosing life instead of death.
Absolutely. And you want to know the great thing about it? My daughter has just given us 2 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
We have a little my little granddaughter's 4 years old now, and my grandson just turned about 7 months.
Wow.
So
you're a proud grandpa, huh?
For a girl that almost didn't make it into the world, as the song says, God said no. She'll grow up to seek my name, and she's a very strong believer.
Amazing. And John, I looked at one of your interviews, and you were talking about, it's not necessarily a pro-life issue or an anti-abortion issue or a pro-choice issue. It's basically an issue between life and death. And it's not political. I think
no, it's not.
You crafted it that it's not political. It's something beyond that. Can you expand on that?
Well, I strictly wrote it about how my daughter came into the world and how she almost didn't. When I was writing the song and recording the song, I wasn't thinking anything politically at all. I wasn't thinking, okay, now I have to go on a crusade to be pro-life, even though I am very pro-life. But I wasn't thinking any of that. I just wanted to tell the story of how she almost didn't make it in. And it was a big song on that record, very, very popular. In fact, there's churches all over the country that play it. They've played it at the March for Life rally in D.C. And even though I had nothing to do with the video,
yeah,
I wrote the storyline, of course, because it's all in the song. But I had a friend of mine in upstate New York made the video and asked me if I wanted to come be part of it, and I said, "What's his name?" Anyway, I asked him if he wanted me to come up there and be part of it. Well, he asked me, and I said, "No, I think this guy's a great filmmaker." I said, I think I'll get in the way. I think my creative part of me will say, no, try this, try that. No, I didn't want to do that. So he made the video and sent it back to me, and it was like, perfect. I think we made one little change.
Well, it is a powerful song. It's a powerful video, and it's a rockin' album. It's a tremendous album as well. I've been listening to that the last couple of days from 2013. And so let's move on from there if you want to, and let's talk about the new album. Now, your new album is called The Amazing Grace, and I just purchased the version that gets the booklet and also your signature as well. So hopefully that'll be here soon. But tell us about the Amazing Grace album. And I think that you talked about, you discussed that COVID-19 kind of delayed this album or had an influence in the making of this album. Can you discuss that?
Well, yeah, in a couple of different ways. The fact that we were in lockdown, 2020, March 9th is when I flew home from California after doing an event for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And as soon as we got home, man, we were locked down. And another way it affected me, because of the lockdown. I had lots of time to go down in my basement studio and work on this record. Another way it affected me is when I caught COVID myself, it shut my voice down for about 2.5 months. I mean,
oh wow!
I mean, I got over COVID fairly quickly, but I couldn't really sing. I had no high range. I just got locked out of my high range for a good 2.5, 3 months. So we had to kind of back it down because I needed to. That was right at the time where I needed to do some vocals on the record. I didn't plan on making a record. There's a whole story behind that too, but I don't want to kill all our time.
So this album was made during when you were kind of in seclusion. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, again, I can't wait for it to get here. We'll put a link to the album below this video as well. Apart from being a record producer, creating labels, creating recording studios, I'm curious, John, what do you like to do for fun apart from all of this?
Eat. No.
What do you like to eat?
I love Italian food and Mexican food and Chinese food and pizza, everything that is not good for the waistline. What do I like to do? I'm a sports fanatic.
Okay.
I mean, I go to hockey games, season ticket holder of the Tennessee Titans. I got knocked out first round of the playoffs. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just a huge sports fan. I mean, you name it. Like I said, I'm a season ticket holder with the Titans, Predators, Nashville Predators. I'm traveling a lot, so I would say that would be one of my hobbies, but I travel so much and I'm in hotels so much that when I come home, it's like, I'll ask my wife, hey, why don't we go on a cruise or go on a little trip or something? Then I think to myself, wait a minute. I just spent 4 nights in a hotel. Do I really want to go do it? I like, because I've been out on the road. I mean, I just like being home and spending time with my grandkids and my wife and my own kids. And, it's, if I think of anything else, I'll let you know.
Yeah. I'm just curious, for those that are multi-talented like yourself, I always wonder, what do these folks do apart from that? But you guys are just like everyone else, when it comes to that. But, and you were speaking about your voice a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading an article that you stated that you're your harshest critic and that sometimes you don't like your voice. And I can tell you, just from a fan's perspective, you've got a unique, amazing voice. But I think you were talking about in this article that, you're not always a fan of your voice. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, that's very true. And I don't say that to like, oh, look how humble I am. I'm a huge critic of my own voice. So I like to rely on, bounce it off of other people like my brother Dino or the guy that was the executive producer and co-wrote a lot of the songs on this new record, a guy named Frank Boxberger. I would, hey, what do you think of my vocals? Is there anything you can hear different? But he's such a fan. He likes everything I sing. So I usually play it for my brother Dino, and he'll give me the reel. He'll say to me something like, you're singing it great. I mean, the technique is great. Your chops sound great, but I'm not buying it.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? There's a difference between just singing a song and then singing a song with conviction.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, for a good example, I mean, Joe Cocker does You Are So Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Bonnie Raitt sings, I Can't Make You Love Me. I mean, you listen to those two songs and it just oozes just realism and you believe what they're singing. You know what I mean? And I like to capture that when I do a vocal. I don't always, but I try. And if I don't quite get to that mark, actually the song this time that we were just talking about, I sang it once and I didn't have the conviction I wanted. And it was ready to go to mix. And I told James Joseph, the guy that mixed the song, I said, give me a few more days on this. I'm going to re-sing it. And I re-sang it and it was totally different. It had that conviction I was looking for because that song really needed it.
I love to see musicians. I love to watch documentaries of musicians behind the scenes of how they made specific albums. And it's always fascinating to me to watch the collaboration, for example, from the producer to the performer to the musicians and so forth. I just love to see that. So it's good that you've got your brother to bounce off, to give you the real deal of how you sound. So it sounds like you're blessed in that area.
It helps. I mean, I can't bounce it off my wife. She says, it sounds good to me. I mean, tell me something. Tell me. It stinks.
Yeah.
It's like, it's good, it's bad. I mean, give me something. Well, it sounds pretty good to me, I guess. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's I can't really use her as a sounding board as far as my voice.
Well, again, in my opinion, you've got a unique voice. Like I haven't heard anyone else sound like you, if that makes any sense. So very unique and powerful and amazing voice. And I watch some of your live videos because that's where you can tell, you see on TV or YouTube some performers, they get up in age and they lose their voice. They're just not quite to the same level. But you're still there, man. It's amazing to me, the quality of your voice, specifically in a live performance. And I've seen a lot of performers in my life, and you're way up there. Your voice is crystal, and it's amazing, and it's very powerful. So
thank you. I mean, I would attribute that to I had a couple 3 years of some pretty intense vocal training that taught me how to sing correctly because I was really hurting myself. Squeezing, when you squeeze like that, you're not going to last very long in life. So I had to learn how to place the notes in the right place. And as I think when I was about 18, I lost about 5 or 6 notes on my range because I was singing all wrong.
Oh, wow.
So we had to put a singer in our top 40 band at the time so I could take lessons and not go into my lessons all hoarse. And it took me about 3 years to and I got, I think, 7 notes on my range. It was miraculous.
Gosh.
It was totally God. Getting me ready to sing that Kansas stuff. Because that certainly is up there.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing stuff that you're able to do. So, John, what's new on John Elefante's agenda? What's coming up next? What are you working on? Can you fill us in just a little bit?
Various things in my studio. Working on shows. I'm part of you can see my shirt here.
Oh, wow.
Voices of Rock Radio. See that?
Okay. What is that?
It's Voices of Rock Radio is, we all use the same band, and I'll go out with different featured artists. Like Kevin Chalfant that was in a band with most of the guys in Journey called, he was in a band called 707. Then he was in The Storm. That was the name of the band, The Storm. And he played live with Journey for a while. He does the Journey stuff. Then a guy named Randall Hall that was with Leonard Skinner. And then, like this past weekend, we went out with Jason Sheff, who was with Chicago for 30 years.
Wow.
So, we all use the same band, a fantastic band, with different featured singers. I mean, we can plug and play, but it's been widely successful. I'll do some stuff from my album and some Kansas stuff and just a variety, and it's a lot of fun, and it's doing very well.
Yeah, I'll have to let folks know about that as well, and put the link or the description of that the band that you get together with, and people need to go see that. They need to know about it. So I'll certainly put that.
We don't do that many ticketed shows. We're doing mostly corporate events, which are really fun. I mean, the audiences are built in, and they're usually in nice places. But we've played in some casinos, and so we have done ticketed. I'll always post when it's a ticketed show that's open to the public. But like Uncaged, obviously, that we were talking about earlier, was a private show, and but it's a lot. We have a lot of fun.
You also play with a band called, which blew me away. I had to research this, the Jay Sekulow Band. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Jay Sekulow from listening on the radio to the ACLJ.
Right.
But I recently found out that he has a band, and you're one of those bandmates. Can you tell me a little bit about how that took place?
Well, John Slitt wrote me into it. He said, "Hey, man, you want to come jam with us?" And this was, I think I've been with him about 8 or 9 years now. And we went over to Jay Sekulow's place, and we all jammed in his radio studio and just started jamming, just having fun. There was really no agenda or there was nothing professional about it at the time. And it just kept growing and growing and growing until we put a real bona fide band together. some really good players. And then we started doing videotaping, and Jay would release those to his ACLJ donors. And just a lot of good feedback. So we just kept going and going and going. And, like I said, it's lasted 8 or 9 years now.
Wow.
It's just fun. It's it gives me a chance to sing some of the old songs I grew up with,
Yeah.
It's mostly cover songs, but we do have quite a few originals.
Amazing.
And Jay's a great guy. There's nothing political about it. I mean, we don't talk politics. There's some people that hate it because of who he is, but Jay's a great guy, smart guy, and he shares a love of music. That's what the whole thing's about.
Yeah. So John, I guess in conclusion, your new album, The Amazing Grace, do you plan to do any touring for that album?
It's kind of a wait and see at this point. Let's see what happens as the record drops, and see what kind of demand is out there. It's a pretty interesting record. I mean, I was going through just a lot of different emotions when we wrote that record, just a lot of highs and lows. It's like, I'd never been through a pandemic. Most of us haven't, and I was, pretty freaked out, and just a lot of things going through my mind. And, so you hear a lot of that in the songs. Like the first song we wrote was called "We Will Be Fine," and it wasn't that wasn't just a lightweight statement. Oh, we're going to be fine. And I mean, that's not. Yeah. It goes much deeper. That. Hey, even if I die, I know Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I'm going to be fine. And so that's a really cool song in the record. I wrote a song about my mom who's passed away, which I almost didn't put on the record because I thought it would maybe just be a little too melancholy for the record. But I played it for some friends, and they've said, man, if you would have left that off of your record, you'd been crazy. So many people are going to be able to relate to that, because almost all of us up at our age now are losing parents or have lost parents. And I was very, very close to my mom. And my dad, for that matter. They were always really supportive of me, and I just really had an urge to write a song about my mom, and I think the audience is going to like it. The record it moves, and it ebbs and flows all over the place, but there's that. I think it's my voice that ties it all together. So I did all the lead vocals, of course, and the background vocals.
Any plans to put that on vinyl, or is that? I'm not sure of the process.
In the works right now.
Yeah, as you can see behind me, I've got a few vinyls back there. I would love to purchase a vinyl copy.
Oh, it's coming. The only problem is we can't announce it yet, because to even get on the docket, it takes 6 to 8 months. That's how backed up.
Wow.
That's how backed up record manufacturing plants are. It's insane.
Oh my gosh.
Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
I just hope 8-tracks never come back.
Yeah, it's like the cassettes weren't that bad, but I remember growing up as a little kid, the 8-tracks, and they would always, get caught in the machine, and you couldn't get them out. They weren't quite as bad as, or they were worse than cassettes, in other words.
Yeah, and your favorite song would stop right in the middle, and so it flip sides, remember?
I did. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Not a great format.
Yeah. But I can't wait till that comes out on vinyl. And John's new album is The Amazing Grace.
Not to be mistaken with the hymn Amazing Grace. It's The Amazing Grace. You know what I'm saying? Which has a different slant to it.
How does it have a different slant?
Well, Amazing Grace is probably the most popular song ever written, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
The record's not about the song Amazing Grace. It's about the amazing grace that comes from only God, the grace that he gives us throughout our lives. And the record has different examples of and there's a song record called The Amazing Grace, which I think kind of defines, our version of The Amazing Grace. And I knew right after we wrote that song that we had to title the record The Amazing Grace. But,
wow.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, and I can't wait for it to get here. I'm looking for my UPS truck to pull up here in the next few days to get that copy. But I think it's coming out. Is it going to be shipped out, or do you know, around the 22nd? I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be held back even a few more days because of me. After we mastered the record, there was 2 songs on the record that I did not like the way the mastering sounded. For those that don't know what mastering is, it's basically normalizing everything. Kind of, you don't want a record where one song's way louder than the other, or one that has like no high end, then a lot of high end, or no low end, then a lot of low end. So you want to get everything pretty consistent. And there were 2 songs that they just weren't doing anything for me. I mean, I like that kick tail, man. I really like it to punch. And there's a song on the record called Time Machine. It's probably the most rockin'est song on the record. And it wasn't killing me. I sent it back to the mastering engineer. I said, man, do something. You know what I mean? Just give it some edge. And he pulled it off.
Well, I can't wait for it to come out, and it's certainly something to look forward to. And I just encourage you to click on the link below and pre-order John's new album, The Amazing Grace. And John, what a blessing it is to get to interview and talk to you on the VineLife Podcast. I just want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure. I mean, I know a lot of my answers were long-winded, but it was a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it's a blessing again, and until next time.
Thank you very much.